Hello, humans. I tend to carry around a lot of crap on the day-to-day. Today's video is just kind of a fun, silly, little whatever. I wanted to see if I could condense my EDC into an Altoids tin. Break down what I carry every day. Typically, I like to carry a notebook. This is just a, what are they called? A field notes with this hide mount case on it. I've had the case 4 years now, and I think it's patining beautifully. I really like it. In addition, I always carry my wallet. This is just some leather fossil wallet. I like leather wallets over other types of wallets just because I find, again, they wear in nicer and I find them more comfortable to keep and use. Cards, cash, all that crap. Every day I carry a Zippo, typically this one right here, which I received as a gift, a graduation gift from my girlfriend. These are helpful, starting fires obviously, but also starting a forge, stuff like that, so I do like to carry a lighter every day. I also carry a Swiss Army knife or other multi-tool every day. I like to carry one locking blade and one non-locking blade, typically, so sometimes if I want to carry a non-locking blade as my main blade, I will switch this out for my Leatherman Surge or another locking multi-tool. But I do like carrying a multi-tool every day. In particular, I like carrying one that has can opener to it because I do eat a decent amount of canned food and most of my go bags have canned food in one way, shape, or form in them. So it is nice to know that I always have a way of opening canned food. This is the one that I carry the most often. It's a walnut scaled hiker, I believe, with the saw. I love this saw. It's the other thing Leatherman makes, or Victorinox makes a really, really good saw that I'm extremely fond of. I also carry a pen. This is my usual pen. It is a Caritas Ink V2. I believe they're on the V3 now. It is, in fact, a fountain pen. Fully brass, very heavy, really robust block of clip. I quite like this pen. And then in addition to all of that, I carry a main blade. Today it's the Condor Krakatoa. This is a very retro feeling knife, to be perfectly honest. But typically my main blade will be locking, but not always. And yeah, this is just my everyday cutting tool that gets used all of the time. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to condense all of these items into something that can fit inside of an Altoids tin. And here's what I came up with. Oh yeah, the other thing that I carry fairly often is candy of some description. Right now I have been carrying these Coffee Delights. They're really good. I also like carrying Werther's and other old people candy. Why? I don't know. Maybe I turned 70 on my 20th birthday. Who can say? Anywho, nanny. Here is what I came up with, getting the candy out of the way early just because I like having it. It's something a little bit sweet when I feel like I need a little sweet during the day. Not a big deal. For my lighter, I have this tiny Korean, no, this one's Japan. I have a Korean version as well, but I have the tiny Japan cartridge lighter. Extremely, extremely simple. It does take standard sized Zippo flints, and I am not putting fuel in this for a 30-second video because I do not carry this very often. But very, very simple. It can be attached to a keychain. It's not bad. It does light and operate exactly as you would expect, which makes it very, very simple, but it does not have a wind guard, so it can be blown out by the wind without any real difficulty. Up next for my pen, I have the Fisher Space Pen Bullet in medium chrome. I really like these because they fold up into an extremely compact package, but because they post, they actually provide a really comfortable writing length to them, where they do fit very nicely in the hands, and you get some really meaningful texturing up by your fingers for indexing off of, which I think is really, really nice. For these kind of compact build loadouts, I don't think that you can get better than the Space Pens, at least that I have seen. Because this is still a medium-sized Fisher cartridge that this takes, right, which is just really, really good. I did not, in fact, manage to get a notebook because, in my opinion, by the time you get down to this size, you can put so little information on a page that it becomes not actually worth carrying a full notebook. So what I would recommend doing if you wanted to do this seriously is actually carrying a folded up sheet of loose leaf paper, or a couple folded up sheets of loose leaf paper. You can pack them at the bottom, which is what I have done for my wallet, but just fold them up, unfold them as you need them. I think it's a little much to do that unless you need a notebook every day, but to be honest, if you do need a notebook every day, I don't think that this challenge is right for you. That's my personal take on it. I would not carry a notebook if I had to stay this condensed. I would still carry a pen because I do still deal with documents, plans at work, filling out time cards, all that stuff that warrants having a pen on me. But I don't think I would justify having a notebook on me all the time if I was to do this. For my multi-tool, this is my first ever Victorinox. I believe it's the Cadet. Very simple, 2 blades, but it has both the bottle opener and the can opener, which is super valuable, and no implements on the back, which makes it a little bit smaller in this profile, which means that it does fit quite a bit better. You can also get pressurized ballpoint pen attachments that replace either your toothpick or your tweezers. I did that backwards, but for me personally, it isn't really worth it. The space savings isn't worth it, and the writing experience with those styles of pens is just totally not worth it, in my opinion. For my dedicated knife, this is actually branded Claremont Crane Services. But this is a Zippo, I want to say they call the version they sell now the Woodchuck, and I believe it's made by Case, or possibly Zippo themselves after they acquired Case. I have not been super clear, and I haven't been able to find super clear information about it, but very, very slicey. Despite being fairly thick, it is a very tall, slightly hollow grind. Actually, it's a full height, slightly hollow grind. You do still get a full 4-fingered grip. It has a slightly smaller blade than what I'm typically used to, but it does still work really well. Very, very slicey. As I mentioned, the stainless steel has held up fairly well. It's not super, I wouldn't necessarily want to test its toughness, and I have not in fact tested its toughness, but in terms of edge retention, I would put it somewhere around 440C, which makes me think it's just a really, really hard take on some other material. It's also super, super, like, once you get the lock out of the way, super sketch. The blade is actually really free swinging in there, despite completely solid lockup, which I personally quite like, because it means I can manipulate it without too much difficulty with one hand. And then as for cash, cards in the bottom, well, wallet, I guess, rather than cash, but cards in the bottom, which makes them a bit of a pain to get to. But I actually found that trying to put them in the cap led to more problems because it made it difficult. Because if you take them, and this is just 4 cards, if you take them and put them in the top, which they can do, it doesn't want to close anymore, which is just a pain in the ass. So they always have been ending up at the bottom, which is not really ideal in my case. I think that if I were to carry this seriously, I would probably do is take a hair tie and band them onto the outside, but that's just my take on it. I have not lived out of this, and I do not intend to live out of this because it seems very uncomfortable, but I do think that I need a better solution for cards and cash. Now, there are obviously a couple of different options when it comes to filling out this loadout. I'm very happy with my choice of multi-tool. I don't actually think I would change it unless it was to go for a model that has more tools on the front face, but still no tools on the back face, which I'm not entirely... Off the top of my head, I can't think of any Victorinox models that are like that. There might be some, but that I'm just not remembering. But I don't necessarily... I have space in terms of thickness, but I don't have space in terms of height and width. So for now, this is absolutely the tool that I'm going to be sticking with. It's the same situation with the pen. I don't think that there's another truly viable decent option that will fit comfortably into an Altoids tin. So Fisher Space Pen Bullet, great choice, gonna stick with that. Which leaves me with kind of 2 things that I can do lots of playing around with. The first one is the knife, and I did have a couple of other options that I did consider and do fit in the kit as loaded out here. First one is the Kershaw Interstellar. It's a little manual OTF. It's fine. My main problem with it is I don't trust the lock enough to really jam it into something if I need to, which is sub-ideal. And it is fairly unergonomic if you have to use it for an extended period of time, which is why I decided not to go with it, but it does fit in this kit, and I did think it was worth mentioning. Another choice that fits in the kit, but is it takes up a lot of space when you put it in the kit, is this guy right here. This is the Buck 743. I want to say they call it the Mini Sovereign. I could be wrong about that, though. But it's fine. It's a button lock, reverse Tonto blade, very snappy action. You do still get a full 4-fingered grip, and it has a very slightly, depending on how you want to call it, it's either slightly chamfered or heavily, rounded front scale. The back scale is fairly flat, though. It's nice. This was probably the better option. The difficulty with this one right here is that it does take up a lot of space, and it's a bit of a pain getting it in and out of the Altoids kit, which just made me want to use my knife less, which I don't think is the best option when you're talking knives. So it's just a little bit too big for this particular type of a build out. The other option, and this one here was the one that I was actually... This one here is the closest one to the one I ended up going with. This is the Cold Steel Recon 1, Micro Recon 1. Triad lock, 3-fingered grip, very, very small. This one here is in 4116, which is a German steel commonly seen in chef's knives. Doesn't hold an edge amazingly, isn't super tough. It is good, fairly stainless, but it's kind of just like fine. And it's not a bad option by any means. Thumb studs lead to one-handed deployment. It flicks out super nice, extremely durable lock. It's not uncomfortable to use for an extended period of time. You can get right up there on the blade for some more force. Really, the only reason that I ended up going with the Zippo over the Cold Steel is because it gives me a more full grip, which is just that little bit more comfortable. That's the entirety of the decision maker between these two, but I do think that the Recon 1 would be a truly excellent choice for this kit. Other than this knockoff miniature Zippo, there were two other options that did fit with most of the knives. This is the Calibri something or other super slim butane lighter. I actually really like this thing. It does fit with all of the options except for the buck knife. With the buck knife, what you need is actually something that fits behind the pocket clip, or you can pull the pocket clip off. But this is the only one that fits with the buck knife. This fits with all of the other knives. It's classier than any of the other options, and honestly, I think it is a really good choice. The main reason I went with the Mini Zippo over this one right here is because this is butane. In a very small build-out like this, you don't get very much space for a lighter with a good gas reserve, and I would much rather have something that's easier to find fuel for, and that you can kind of oversaturate the fuel in it, versus something that takes butane. But that being said, this one here is a very good choice nonetheless. And then this one right here, which actually only fits with the Zippo. This is also a Zippo. This is a Zippo Slim that doesn't currently have fuel in it. It's fine. It's a Zippo Slim, extremely simple. This would have been the most seamless switch for me, going from my regular Zippo over to a Zippo Slim. But it takes up quite a bit of space, and in terms of like the amount of my EDC that is taken up by the lighter, this would massively increase the percentage of my EDC that is being taken up by the lighter. So it just didn't make the cut. And again, it only works with this knife, which is the knife I ended up choosing. But nonetheless, if I wanted to switch out my knife with time, or if something else came up, this limits my choices quite a bit more than the other options, which is why I did not go with it. So yeah, I mean, this is a fun challenge, but it's not necessarily something I would recommend to everybody. And I think that for a lot of people, there's no real reason to do something like this with your EDC. Like, I can't appreciate the value add. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. With the Calibri lighter, I can fit one of the two candies in, but not both. And with the Zippo, obviously, I can fit neither of the two candies in. It also depends on knives and stuff. With the Buck, I can't fit any of the candies in with any of the other configurations, so on and so forth. But if the candies matter to you, then this is the one that I have found gives me the most amount of candy. Anyways. I don't think that there's very much of a reason to go for a carry like this. The big advantage would be like pocket organizers. It's easy to switch your EDC out between pairs of pants if that is something you're doing very regularly. And it kind of condenses everything into the same spot, which I guess makes stuff less likely to lose. I don't really subscribe to that argument personally. In my opinion, I would much rather have a series of dedicated tools that do good rather than a set of tools that are good at one specific thing and okay at everything else. And that's not to say I think that any part of this collection has been bad. The worst thing in it is obviously the lighter, but it's not bad. It works perfectly fine. It just is basic and is extremely simple in construction, right? Which is fine. But with this, I just feel like you're limiting yourself a lot for very minimal returns. And it makes everything more difficult and more time-consuming to get to, especially if you only have one hand. Like, if you only have one hand and don't have a place to put this down, it becomes basically impossible to get to anything. If you have a desk or both your hands, it's not too bad. It's just more time-consuming, which I feel is unnecessary. I don't get it. I do understand a little bit more making mini survival kits that you can leave places that are in an Altoid. But again, I feel like the benefit that you can get from going up in size is so valuable that build-outs like this just don't make sense. I think it's much better, personally, to get or make a pocket organizer around what you carry every day, rather than making what you carry every day based around your pocket organizer. That is my take personally. I understand not everybody's going to agree with that, and I would love to hear your reasonings for liking a build-out like this. But for me personally, this was just kind of a little curiosity and nothing more. That being said, this was kind of fun, and I will probably do something similar to it again at some point. I haven't necessarily gotten the opportunity to do very much stuff like this, so this is fun, and you can expect more. Stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.